This is so exciting because this episode is sponsored by Well People, a brand that's been ahead of the clean beauty game long before it was trending. Their products are plant-powered, science-backed, and meet some of the highest standards for safety and transparency. Right now, I'm loving their BioCorrect Concealer Stick. It's creamy, super blendable, and gives really natural coverage without it feeling cakey. It brightens the under eyes, covers redness, and just evens everything out in the most effortless way. It's packed with skin-loving ingredients like organic algae and coffee extract, so it's actually helping your skin while you wear it, which is why I love it. It's gentle enough for sensitive skin and also pregnancy-friendly. And I must say, I've recently been using this in my everyday, and it is now my go-to. It is the first product I grab when I go to start my skin routine of putting on makeup. I'm actually so obsessed with it, especially on a concealer side. The way you apply it is just you rub it straight onto your skin, so I feel like you don't have to worry about a brush. So highly recommend, and I'm a big fan. You can shop Well People at wellpeople.com, Target, or Amazon, and if you go to their website, use code WPXMOM WALKPOD, Well People X Mom Walk Pod, for 20% off and free shipping. All of it will be linked in the description below. Thanks, Well People. I love ya. Hi, and welcome back to What's on Her Plate podcast. I'm your host, Jamie Easton, and this is where we tell stories of vulnerability and victory. I'm so excited to have my friend Jill. You guys are in for a good treat. She's just a woman of joy, but also has a really amazing story on foster care. So Jill, can you say hello and introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks for having me, Jamie. I am so excited to be here. Before I begin, I do have to say, first impression of Jamie, I had just moved to Orange County a couple years ago, and I walked into someone's home and she was there, and I've never told you this, but I literally was like, oh my gosh, there's a supermodel here. I was stunned by how beautiful you were. This was my actual raw first impression. I was like, Jamie's a supermodel, and I was ready to go look you up when I got home. I was literally like, okay, she said her name's Jamie. I was trying to catch the last name. I'm like, I'm sure she's the model. And then I found Mom Walk Collective, and I'm like, this is even better. So anyway,
Jill.
that was my first impression of you. I have to share with the audience, just in case.
Thank you. It's so kind. If I get to then kind of rivet back to you, you are one of the most joyful filled people I've ever met. In your voice, in your tone, on how you carry yourself, you carry so much hope, which is
thanks, Jamie.
what I'm so excited for people to hear. What a gift it is that I get to bring people like you and give you a place to speak your story. Because I've got to see it in the small little bit in the last few years, but it's so powerful. And so even how this came to be to thinking to have you, I ran into her, which
yes,
I was having.
this.
I was having a Lincoln morning, which was really great, but we were kind of just sick of each other at the moment, and I was not letting him eat crumbs in my car, so we were sitting on the curb.
Oh, which I thought that was so cute. I'm like, okay, new date idea, sit on the curb and eat our bagels or whatever. I thought it was adorable.
And she walks past with her friend on a walk, and I was like, sup? I was like, wait, oh my gosh, we should have you on. So,
oh, that's so sweet.
So excited to have you. But tell everyone a little bit about yourself and everything.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Jill. I am a 24-year-old foster mom. I live here in Southern California. I'm married. My husband Jack and I just celebrated our 3rd wedding anniversary a couple days ago, actually. So
Congrats.
Just hit 3 years. Thank you. And he was my high school crush. I was obsessed with him the moment I saw him at 14, and it took him a couple years. He wasn't sure about me. We were best friends, but he literally will tell me, he's like, I did think you were a little crazy, so I wasn't sure if I was ready to date you. And then in college, he was ready to go, and now we've been married for 3 years. So
you guys are so cute. When you guys also first walked in, we heard about Jack and Jill are joining.
The names, I know, it's actually unbelievable.
I love it. Well, let's start with a little bit of an appetizer and bring people into a little bit more of your personal story. Can we learn a little bit about who you are? Are you born and raised here? What did your childhood look like? And then what kind of led up to the decision that you guys decide to do to grow your family?
Absolutely. So I'm not from Southern California. My husband and I both are from Portland, Oregon, and that's where I was mostly born and raised. I was born there, spent most of my life there. We moved a couple times, but always ended up back in Portland, and then came to college in California, and that's kind of when we were
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I went to Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo.
Oh, wait, fun.
Yeah, and then moved back to Portland for a year, Jack and I, and then we're like, we need to come back to the sun. So, Yeah. So that's
Wait, that's really fun. I had no idea that you guys were also slowest.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Amazing.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. I need to go back there. I miss it. But yeah, growing up, I had, I love my parents. They're some of my best friends. They're like amazing people. They have way more friends than I do. They're how I meet people, like, is through my parents, because they have a bunch of friends who are like my age. Like they're just such good connectors. But anyway, they're so cute. They were the best parents, but they had kids very young. So they were like in their very early 20s raising 3 kids. So I have 2 siblings, an older brother and a younger sister. And my dad was a pastor growing up. So he has always been involved in ministry. I feel like that just exposed me to a lot of things early on, hard things, really good things, just a lot of stuff. I felt like his whole life was basically just centered around like pastoral care for people in our church, people in our community. And so my parents were just very involved with our community from a young age, which was really cool to like grow up with this understanding of like, we talk about loving our neighbor, but I felt like I was watching my dad especially like actively live this out, which was so cool.
A lot of people hear about like PK kids, pastor kids.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people who are PK kids either like grew up in a really healthy environment where it taught them to love the Lord well, or they're like, yo, I have seen some hardship. They take a little spiral and ultimately sometimes come back. Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
So what was like that environment, especially, it sounds like one I see on social media, like your mom is so cool, like your whole family and everything. And I see you have a really great relationship with them now. Was it always like that growing up?
Yeah, I would say it honestly always was. My mom was so carefree and funny growing up. Like, she was not your typical pastor's wife, and I think that really helped. She is like, she's just kind of unhinged, but in the best way possible. Like, she just would do the funniest thing. She was like so happy, so easygoing. She was just always like, I just remember her whole life. She's like, whatever you want to do, you can do that thing. Cool. She's like, I won't. And she worked a bunch of side hustles to make sure we could go to private school. Like, she just would do whatever it took basically to make her kids' dreams come true, which was amazing. And then my dad is also like the most pure-hearted person I've ever known. And I think what's really cool from my experience is a lot of pastors like will kind of, I think people will have different experiences of them. Like maybe they're one way to the church and then one way to their family or their community. And my dad is the same person through and through in every sense. And he just was like just an amazing dad, an amazing person. But I will say like a hard part of being in ministry is you are gone all the time. Like I think there's this misconception that like, oh, if you're a pastor, like you almost have like a more laid back job. But I just like, my dad was gone for almost every holiday. He was working late nights, just basically like being there for people in their moments of need. Like someone would call from the hospital and be like, my kid is dying, and he would go. Like just the craziest things. So anyway, that is like the one hard part. But I never felt a pressure from them of like, you need to be perfect or you need to put on this like performance. They were just like, whoever you want to be, like we love you. So
that's so special.
Yeah, it was.
And
really
I feel
cool.
really unique, which I think is probably really refreshing to people who even now maybe are starting a family and feel called to ministry to see then you and be like, oh, wow, my kid can turn out and have loving parents and, you know, have a positive experience. So thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
Yeah, really cool. With, you know, then just being so in such like, it sounds like a healthy environment and also just admiring your parents. When did the moment kind of come of being like, oh, I want to be a mom one day?
Honestly, there was never a moment. It's like as early back as I can remember, I was like mommy to my baby dolls. Like my parents will joke about it all the time. They're like, you were like obsessed with your babies. You're obsessed with other people's babies. Like I just always loved babies. I always wanted to be a mom. That was like my life goal. So yeah, it just kind of always
like when were you the girl growing up and people like, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? And you'd be like a mom.
Yes.
That's so cute.
Yes, I would be. But I also had this like dream of like, I want to do something in business. I do want to have a career. Like I kind of had both where I was like, I want to be a mom. That felt like my highest calling. But I also, it was really important to me to like have a career, which is why I like went to college and pursued my degree. I was like, I want to do both, you know?
Yeah. So then was there ever a moment then, not only on just being a mom, that you knew that you're like, oh, I want to be a foster mom? Like, was there something in your upbringing? Was it through an experience that you saw with your parents in ministry? Was it like your own just kind of seeing in the world and need? Was there ever like a turning point moment where you're like, wow, my heart kind of feels something for this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I remember, I think like maybe really early middle school, honestly, maybe fifth or sixth grade, I read this book called Kisses from Katie. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Okay, you should read it. It's so good. It's about this woman who like goes to live in some country in Africa, and she basically like there were all of these like orphans that she raised by herself, and she was like in her early 20s, like, and she just went and moved there and had all these kids who didn't have parents, and she just took them in. And I remember like sobbing, I'm like 11 or something, like sobbing my way through the book and telling my parents like I'm supposed to do something like this.
Wow.
But I never ever felt called to like go overseas or live in another country or anything. Like I never wanted to do that, but I was like, I want to be a mom to kids who need a mom. And then I remember my parents, when I was, I think 12, they actually started taking classes to become foster parents because in our church, a bunch of people fostered, and I think they felt like that would be something cool to do. They had taken one class and then got a call about twins and were asked to take in twin babies, and like they were not certified. The need was so high that they were getting called like completely uncertified, which was crazy. And they were like, I think we're going to do it. Anyway, they ended up deciding like life was too crazy. They couldn't take in 2 more kids. They had 3 kids. But I remember being so heartbroken. I was like, I got my hopes up. I'm like, we're going to take in these babies. And then my parents were like, never mind, our life is too crazy. And at that moment, like I remember sitting in the car and talking about this with my mom. And I was like, as soon as I'm old enough to do this, this is what I'm going to do. Like, I need to be a foster parent. Like, I'd always wanted to adopt. I'd always known about adoption. Foster care, I feel like, is talked about less frequently.
Yeah.
But then I was like, oh my gosh, I can do this. Like, there's this need. And so that was kind of the moment, I feel like, in the back of my head.
Yeah. I love hearing your story because it's something so organic and pure. I feel like, and this is just all honesty and transparency, the only time I heard about a kid going into like foster care or up for adoption literally is my reference to like MTV Teen Mom.
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah, totally.
That is like what, like the only reference I have of like, how do kids get into the system?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And I feel almost like naive, not really like knowing a ton. Now, like in my 30s, I understand circumstances and how things happen and like the grief it gives parents on both sides and the whole scenario of it. But I think even hearing how like organic and pure, like even the desire that God brought the book, and then all of a sudden your parents had it, and then you're like, oh, my heart just burns for this or breaks for this, is so beautiful. Because I'm just sitting here thinking of like, do I have any reference of anything? And the reference that did come to my mind was MTV Teen Mom.
Totally.
And it's dramatized into this like massive drama to have television and stuff. So it's just inspiring. It's really, really cool. So now I kind of want to fast forward and kind of get into like more like the main course, the meat of everything. Yeah. You marry Jack, or you're dating Jack. Did these conversations come up, or you're like, is it one of those like ultimatums when you like guys started dating of being like, hey, this is what my heart burns for. You're in or you're out? Yeah. Or like, what were those conversations like?
Funny you asked that question. Literally, basically what happened is I came to him with an ultimatum, and I was like, we're either going to date or we're not going to be friends anymore. And he was like, okay, let's date. He's like, I was already thinking we should, like, I was going to ask you out, but I wanted to finish this coding class before because I'm really busy. I'm like, okay, nerd, whatever. But in that conversation where we're like, okay, we're going to start dating, I was like, wait, but first, before we actually make the decision of if we're going to date, because we were such good friends that we knew if we'd start dating, we'd probably get married because we're so close at that point. But
wait, can you break down first what, sorry, I also didn't mean to be
please.
In the close friend, does this mean you're hanging out every day? You're like basically dating?
We're basically dating.
And there's just no like DTR.
Exactly. We had some DTRs in high school where, Jack was literally like, I feel like we could get married, but I just don't feel like we can date right now. It was very confusing. I was like, okay, for real. Anyway, in college, we're spending every moment of every day together. And so this is where I was like, okay, either we're going to date, or we're like, we have to put some distance here because this is like not good for me. But we were on the same page, which was good. It was a risk, but we were on the same page. So, it all worked out. But literally in this conversation of whether or not we're going to date, which we were like, we want to, I was like, wait, but first off, before we commit to anything, like, I need you to know that like my dream in life is to foster and adopt, and like, are you okay with that? So, and we tell people this these days where they're like, when did you guys start talking about it? We're like, literally the the day we started dating, and Jack was like, yep, I'm totally on board. Like,
Wow.
I want to do that. I don't even really know what that looks like, but like, I'm down to do it with you. And so from the beginning, I mean, it was like,
So
we're having these, you know, dating. We were like about to graduate college. So we were having life conversations about like what our future would look like. And we did often talk about like, yeah, we want to foster. How do we make that happen? You know, so it was kind of always part of our relationship, if that makes sense.
That's so cool. I love it. Okay, so now let's transition of like, you're having these conversations, you graduate college, you go back to Portland. Did you guys start kind of the program? Like, can you break down to people like what it even looks like to get into it?
Yeah.
Maybe someone's had it on their heart and is like, this is what I really want to do, but like, I don't know where to start. I have a desire, but do I start with my state? Do I go to an agency? Like, where did you guys start? And like, can you break down what someone would even do to start? You mentioned classes and getting certified. What does that look like?
Yeah, so I'm not a researcher at all. I'm basically like type one thing into my search engine. The first thing that comes up, that's what I'm going to do. This is literally what I did with foster care. I was like, you know, foster care in this county. And I basically just found the first link, which was through the state. So the most common way to foster that most people do is like through the state, so through their county. You can basically like apply to go to an initial class where they talk about, hey, here's what fostering is, here's what it isn't. There's so many misconceptions of like fostering being the same thing of adoption, but they're totally different. Like, so there's like that initial class, and then you basically decide from there, am I committed to doing the training? And then you do a series of home studies and interviews, and you do trauma-informed care training and all these things. And then basically you get fingerprinted and they give you your license and you get a call. So that's like through the state, but you can also do that same process through a private agency.
Okay.
And the benefit to that is like, if you want to go through a Christian agency, like those exist, and they just provide like a little bit more support in the journey, I would say. Like, it's the same process, but there's like maybe more resources for you. So those are like the two main ways to start, basically.
Okay. And when you're going through all of these classes, like, tell me, you said some people have the misconception of like, what is foster care versus adoption? What would you say is like the main difference? Like, when someone describes foster care, how are they describing it?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think that if you're fostering, you're just naturally going to adopt the child in your care. The goal of foster care, they say, is reunification with parents or family when safe and possible. So I think it's majority of kids in foster care do end up getting to go back to their parents. That's the goal, is to give the bio parents a chance to basically do whatever is necessary to be in a healthy place to raise their children. However, there's, times when that's not possible. It's not safe for the child. The parent maybe doesn't even like want to raise the kid. And so then they go into foster care and it ends up going to adoption later. But it typically takes years for that to happen because the main goal really is reunification. With adoption, usually you'd go through a private agency. You'd say, hey, I want to adopt this age range. For most people, it's usually babies. And then you get put on a wait list. And then when a mom's about to have a baby that she's putting up for adoption, you get a call. You go to the hospital, you pick up that baby, and that's that. And then you sign the paperwork and they're adopted. So fostering is like, you're just going in with a different intention, basically.
Yeah. No, that's really good. I really appreciate the distinction. So then when did your guys' journey start? Like, how did it all go?
Yeah, I mean, literally the month after we got married, I was eager to start. I was like, Jack, can we sign up to do this? And we were both working full time. We lived in a tiny apartment in Portland, Oregon. It was not the time to like take in a child. But what we figured out we could do is called respite care. And that's basically when you're like a babysitter for foster parents. So say like a foster parent needs a date night or needs to go away for a weekend. You usually have to have certified, trusted people to watch foster kids. They can't just go to anyone. You can't just hire some random like babysitter online and have them stay for the weekend.
Also, other things I just didn't know, but
crazy?
like you don't even think about, but yeah, it
Totally.
makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. So anyway, we basically went through almost the same certification process to become foster parents, but we just became respite care providers. So we basically were just like babysitters for foster parents, which was great because it like just kind of got our feet wet on like, okay, this is what this looks like. And we did a few of those respite care situations in Portland. And then a year into living there, Jack, my husband, got a job here in Southern California. And so we moved, and I was working in person at a big company based in Portland at the time. And then when we moved Here, my job went remote, and all of a sudden I'm like, I don't have a 45-minute commute to work. I have way more time on my hands.
Yeah.
Like, I have capacity. And that's when we were like, we should start the process to become like actual foster parents. And so we started the process. It probably took 6 months. And then we told them, like, hey, we're ready. We had decided we wanted to take a baby, or 0 to 2 years, because we were living in a small apartment and we're like, we probably shouldn't take like a 10-year-old. And we were both still working. So that's another thing about foster care is you can kind of tell the agency, like, hey, I want to do this age range. Some people do teenagers, some people do elementary school, a lot of people do babies. It's just kind of like depending on your life stage.
What would you say, like, sorry, side note, is like, do they really say like, hey, this age is in need? Or do you feel like, well, there's a massive need in any age range?
Yeah. I think it does depend on like the state and the county.
That makes sense.
But I will say like the most common one that I hear is teenagers, just because they've oftentimes seen the most trauma. And so they're just coming from really hard situations. And it's hard to get people to take a teen into their home, you know, even though there's such a big need. However, I will say in Orange County specifically, there is a huge need for newborns who have been drug exposed. So that was kind of the need in our county, and that's what we felt comfortable taking in to begin with anyway. So yeah, it kind of depends on the area.
Yeah.
That's for here.
So you guys decided, you're like, we're going to do newborn to 2.
Yeah.
You get your certification. When did you guys get your first call?
We got our first call 5 days after saying we were available. So it's crazy. Yeah, it's so crazy. Like that, I mean, that it's really sad because that shows you how big the need is. Like that because there's actually a list that they have of like, okay, who's available. So we would have been bottom of that list because we had just gotten our certification and they still called within 5 days. So yeah, so they call and they're like, we have a brand new baby boy at the hospital, and we didn't know what like age we were really going to get the call for, but they're like, it's a newborn. And we were so unprepared, Jamie. Like we had barely anything. Like I think in my mind I just thought like, oh, when they call, I'm going to have all this time, I can set up the room, I can get all this stuff, like. And they call and they're like, yeah, he's going to be discharged tomorrow, like, can you come meet him and get him? And so we like sprinted around our city trying to like hit all the targets, get all the baby stuff. We needed a car seat, we needed a crib. Like I know some people go in so much more prepared. I think in my mind it just didn't even feel real. Like it didn't feel like it was going to happen until we got the call. And then we didn't know how we would feel, and we were like, oh my gosh, we're going to say yes, we're going to do this. And then we were like, okay, we got to get all this stuff. So yeah, that was like our first call.
With getting everything, I think like, if you can educate me too, how much does the state provide on like helping you guys get prepared? Do you guys have to prepare everything? What does that look like? Because I think that's another question to 10. Like I'm speaking from a place of like, I know nothing.
Yeah.
So in that, are you kind of also signing up of like, okay, we're going to be prepared to have everything that a 0 to 2-year-old may need? So because a 2-year-old's need is like way different than a newborn's need and stuff. So do they kind of give you a list of like, hey, these are things you should prepare for? Or it's just kind of like, no, we have a baby. You ready?
Basically, it's that. It's like they vaguely talk about like, oh, here are the things you need. I don't even remember that at this point. I just remember being like, I think I had that thought of like, well, we could get a call for a newborn. We could get a call for a 2-year-old. They have very different needs, obviously. So that's part of why we didn't like prepare everything in advance.
And 5 days.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh, I know. I think we were just like, and we're like 22. So we were like, no, maybe we had just turned 23. So we were like babies. We did not know what we were doing. It's like so crazy in retrospect, but it was so like God in the moment. But anyway, so we had to sprint around. No, so they don't provide stuff. They don't even like provide an initial like stipend or anything to prepare. So that's all on you to like buy all the stuff, get all the things you need, which is hard because it's like when you're pregnant, you have 9 months to prepare. Usually
you have a baby shower. Yeah.
Sometimes you have a meal train. Like, and I'm not saying it should be the same for foster care, but it is overwhelming to get a call about a baby you're going to take the next day and then be like, oh my gosh, I have to prepare everything.
Oh yeah, and it changes in 24 hours.
Totally.
Which I've always was curious to know because yeah, that is the case of like in that you get 9 months to like mentally prepare and stuff. Granted, you have the time of getting certified and you have that.
You know what you're signing up for.
But it's different in the aspect of like when you're pregnant, like your body starts to like prepare mentally for it and stuff. So what was the mental process for you on like bringing home, you know, this newborn baby?
Yeah.
How are you doing mentally? Like what did that feel like for you? Obviously there's excitement, but there's also probably like the unknown.
It was just so surreal. Like I feel like we were kind of going on adrenaline. Like we go into the NICU, we see this tiny baby. I mean, instantly you just fall in love. Like that's the way I would tell people is like you see these babies and they are already, you just know they're in such a hard spot because the fact that they're being born into foster care is so brutal and you just instantly like see them and you love them. And I always tell people like the holiest moments of my life are the 2 times I went to the NICU to bring back home both of our foster sons. It was just like I literally felt the Holy Spirit in the room stronger than I have ever before. It's just like there's this precious tiny human being like and you know they need someone to take care of them, you know. And so you're like I need to step up and be that person. Like I have to do it. Like there they are. I got the call. Like this is it, you know. I feel like we just the entire time we had our first foster son, which was only a month and a half, it was a really short amount of time. We thought it was going to be longer, it was shorter. I feel like the whole time we were like kind of going on adrenaline because we're like, oh my gosh, we're working full time, all of a sudden we have this newborn, like, you know, we're doing visits with his parents. This is a whole new like world for us, you know? So it was just crazy. I think it was, all of it was surreal, but I really did feel the Lord in those moments. Like in those weeks we had him, there was so much grace from God of just like, I don't know, people checking in and like people asking like, how do you foster? What does this look like? You know? And so many moments with his parents, our foster son's parents, of just being like, oh my gosh, you are there's hardly any difference between your precious newborn baby child and you. Like you are a precious human being who has gone through unimaginable trials, you know? And so I feel like that was the most shocking thing for me of seeing our foster son's parents and being like, oh my gosh, we love you. Like we just like, I think another misconception about foster care is like, I think we make out the bio parents to be the bad guys a lot of the time. And we make out the foster parents to be the hero of the story. But the reality is God is the hero of the story. And we are just like there to love and serve these babies and love and serve their bio parents who like, you know, have been through so much. And so I think like the first time we had a visit with them, we were so scared. We didn't know what to expect. We're like, are they going to hate us because we're taking care of their son? Like all these things. And I think we like all cried that first visit. Like they, seeing their son for, you know, the first time in a week or whatever it was, and just like seeing their love for him, and they had brought gifts for him. It was just like the most moving experience. And I remember my parents were like, how's the visit going? And I texted them and I'm like, we love his parents. Like they're precious. And it just totally shifted my mindset of like, why are we doing this? Like, we're not doing this to get this baby and take him home and hide him from the world. We were like, no, we do want to see a family restored, but it is a very painful, refining process to like get to that place because you fall in love with this baby. Like you feel like this is my child. I need to protect them. Like, but then you're also like, but maybe protecting them is like making a way for them to go back home, like where they came from, you know, if their parents want it and are trying, which in this case they were. So, yeah.
Wow. So was then, since it only was a month, what was the process back of, you know, then, you know, him reunifying with his family and it being beautiful, but now your house is back to just you and Jack. Yeah.
Yeah, it was crazy. We had very little time to process it because our social workers were saying like, oh, you're going to have him for a long time. Like, you know, it'll be a while. We're still working things out. And then we knew there was a court date coming up. We knew there was like technically a possibility he could go back home. But they called us that day and they're like, you need to bring him home in 1 hour.
An hour.
In 1 hour.
Whoa.
So we go from being like, we don't know how long we're going to have this baby. You know, he could be with us for all these holidays. It was right before Christmas, like all these milestones. And then they're like, no, his dad is ready, like to take him back. Like we think he's ready. And so we, you know, had to like pack all his stuff. We had written, I think I'm like a worrier. So in the back of my head, I'm like planning for every possible event. So I was like, okay, if he does go back home, you know, at this court date for some reason, like I want to be prepared. So we had printed pictures, we'd written notes, we'd like bought him a book and, you know, wrote something in the back. And like we were literally attaching our phone number to things because we didn't know if we'd ever see him again.
Yeah.
You know, we were like, we just spent the first month and a half of this child's life with him, you know, and I don't know if we'll ever see him again. So we were like, you know, trying to send everything we could so that if someday he wanted to, you know, get in contact with us, he could. So it was like a shocking process. Like Jack went and dropped him off. He went back to his dad. You know, Jack's crying, the dad's crying. Like, it's like beautiful and heartbreaking. It's like, wow, this man is getting his son back, which is beautiful. And also, like, it felt like we're losing this child who we've fallen in love with, you know?
Yeah. So did that change your guys's, obviously the experience was so beautiful. Do you feel like you needed a time period in between then like being available to take another child? Or what was then kind of, because you guys are fostering now, what was then kind of the in-between? And then how did you get the call for the foster child you have now?
We did need time in between. In fact, when he went back to his dad, we were like, I don't think we can ever do this again. Because it was just so painful to like raise a child and say goodbye, you know, not raise, like we didn't have him for that long, but it feels like a long time, you know.
Well, especially in the newborn, you're doing up all night.
Yeah.
You know, it's those like little things of like they're smiling for the first time. It's like all those tiny little mile markers.
Yeah. And it was our first experience at any sort of parenting. So we were like, oh my goodness. So we were kind of like, I don't know if we're cut out for this. But the like God moment in all of this is that the day after he goes back to his dad calls me and he's in tears and he's like, thank you. Like, we see what you've done. We're so grateful. Like, thank you for the pictures. Thank you for the notes. And he's like, we wanted to ask you, like, will you be his godparents, his son's godparents? And I like, I know, same. Like, I can't even talk about it. And I'm literally like weeping on the other end of the phone. I'm like, yes, because like, you know, I went into this, like, literally don't know if I'm ever going to see this child again. And then to have his dad call me and be like, we want you in his life. Like, you know, will you be his godparents? We were just like, we're so like undone by that. Like, it was so moving and just felt like in all the heartbreak and confusion of like fostering for the first time, like just to have this like beautiful, like redeeming moment and be like, oh my gosh, this is why we signed up to do this. Like, not only did this baby go back to his dad, which is like actually amazing. Now we like still gonna be in his life. So those like for 4 months after that, it's like we saw him almost every weekend. Wow. We were babysitting him during the weekend so his dad could work because his dad is, I mean, his parents actually are my heroes because they worked their butts off to get him back. I mean, his dad is, I'm pretty sure, still working like 7 days a week, doing really hard work. And so, yeah, we were like watching him on the weekends. So we got all this time with him. Like, beautiful. His dad was sending us photos of him over Christmas. It was our first Christmas together. Like, yeah, it was so redeeming. So we for 4 months were like, basically like, we're not going to open our home again. We're just going to like pour into our godson. And we got all these beautiful moments with him and just got to like see how hard his dad was working. Felt so proud of them.
What was your and Jack's relationship like, you know, being newlyweds? Can you like break down, I think a lot of people are concerned, or maybe not concerned, or maybe let's just use the word curious on how the dynamic is then with your spouse. You know, as of you guys, you didn't have kids at the moment, and it was the first time you guys then had a kid. Did it really bond you and Jack? Did you guys like realize, oh my gosh, we feel a little more distant from each other? Can you break down what you and Jack experienced together relationally?
Yeah. Jack literally said the other night, he's like, parenting will amplify whatever else is already happening in your relationship. So if you have a strong relationship, it's going to get better. If you're struggling, like it's going to make it harder. And I felt like for us at this point in time, we have had a decade of friendship and we had been married for, I guess like a year and a half at that point. And I think Jack and I just like, this is the mercy of the Lord, but we've just always had a really good relationship and we just get along so well. Like we just like love each other so much. And so it was a very beautiful experience to have together. It was bonding in a way I didn't even know we like needed to bond in. It's like, you know, like trauma bonding basically. Like that's kind of what happened. It was like we were the only two people on the planet who had this same exact experience. And so I think it made us lean into each other more.
That's really cool. I think that'll be really encouraging for a lot of people listening of being like, I really want this. I'm nervous of what it's going to do to my relationship, and to hear, you know, like what you said of like that experience that you guys both went through together that no one else can say like reference or experience like you guys did is really cool. And I think a lot of people would be like, all right, I'm going to show this clip. Honey, come listen to this. Like, hear how great it went for them. No, truly. And I hope that this is what happens from this, is so many people get so encouraged.
Aww.
You want to bring us kind of up to date where you are now with everything.
Yeah. So, during that 4-month period between our godson going back home to his parents and then our next call, which I guess I'll lead into, we had taken ourselves off the list for fostering. We were like, we just want to press into our current situation. We just had a lot going on in life in general. And we were like, probably not the best candidates to like take in another placement right now. So I had emailed and said, hey, take me off the list. And honestly, in that time still, we were like, not sure we're ever going to do this again. Like, it had a really good redemption arc, but it was painful. It was really hard. And we were like, yeah, I just don't know. And then a year ago, we got a call late one night, and it was a placement coordinator. So basically they try and place kids with families. And she's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. Like, she's like, do you have a placement right now? We're like, no, we're off the list. You just called me, I'm off the list. And she's like, well, there's like a baby boy who was just born, and I was wondering if you guys would be interested in taking him. And it was kind of just this moment of like, are we going to do this or not? Like, we're literally off the list, and I get this call, and I was like, is this God? Because there should be a lot of people. Like, why are you calling me? I'm not even on the list. And I cannot even explain to you how inconvenient the timing was. Like, it was by all standards, like, not a good time for a lot of reasons. And Jack and I look at each other and we're like, we're taking this baby.
Wow.
I remember calling my parents and they're like, are you sure it's good timing? You've got a lot going on. And I was like, I'm going to take an hour and think about it and then call her back. And in this hour, I kept hearing what makes sense in the spiritual doesn't always make sense in the natural.
Wow.
And I just kept, and I don't hear things very often from the Lord. Like, I don't feel like I'm like hearing the Lord's voice like all the time, but it was very clear. And Jack's like, I feel the same way. I feel like we're supposed to say yes. And so we said yes, and it's been a year now. So we've had this sweet baby boy for a year, and he has, literally changed our lives, like in every way imaginable. We had a big trip to Europe planned like 2 months later, and you can't take them, like you can't take foster kids out of the country. And so we like had a bunch of non-refundable stuff, and we're like, okay, we're not going to Europe, and we just lost thousands of dollars, but it's okay. But it was so worth it. Like, it was like the timing was kind of crazy, but also it was like, it had to be that way, you know? And it's been the most amazing, heartbreaking, hard, beautiful, like all the things experience.
What would you say is, like, now that you've had a longer placement, kind of things that people don't know about the foster system? I think even things I see on your social is like doctor's appointments or like court appointments and stuff like that. What's kind of, obviously I know every kid is so different, but what are things that some people can like expect when they have a longer placement or a placement in general?
I think either way, if you take a short-term placement or a long-term placement, there are going to be a lot of appointments, probably more so than if you had a biological child. There's just extra things, like there are court dates for the bio parents, and Jack and I have gone to these court dates. Not everyone goes in person, but you can sometimes. So, that's happening. There's extra doctor's appointments. Like, sometimes you'll have like specialists for different things, or if the child comes in with like special health needs, like you're going to have more appointments for that. And maybe you'll have therapists come. You have a monthly social worker visit, at least monthly, sometimes more. You'll have lawyers and legal assistants in your home. Basically, you have to be willing to kind of put your life on display for the system. So like, whatever plans you have, you need to hold very loosely, because your life will kind of be dominated by like the system. And that sounds scary, but I just say it as like, that's honestly the truth. But there's so much grace. And honestly, I can tell you, like, the people I've worked with, the social workers I've worked with, the therapists, the, nurses, everyone, like, these are incredible people who have hearts for these kids, and they have insane caseloads. And, it's like a gift to get to, like, I look at it as like, yes, we've had way more appointments added to our life, but also way more opportunities to meet people and have these experiences. So
I know too, one of the things and decisions you've made lately is to leave the workforce. What has that looked like and what made that decision happen?
Yeah, that was a hard one for me. Like I mentioned earlier, I did always want to be a mom and I did always want to have a corporate career, and I had a career that I like felt proud of and really loved, and I loved my work, but I was working full time from home and taking care of my foster son with help sometimes, but not all the time. So it was honestly like, it just was a lot. I got to a point where Jack was like, okay, either you're quitting or I'm quitting, and you make less money than I do. So I think you should.
You're like, you're the choice.
Yeah, totally. And it kind of made sense because our foster son was getting, he's getting closer to a year, and just developmentally, they're like doing so much more. He's crawling everywhere. He's like,
nap schedules look different.
Yes, they want to like be social. And so I was like, I want to have the freedom to like take him to do things, and I want to have those experiences with him. Like I want to do those things. And, something that we had always talked about was when we had biological kids, we had both decided, Jack and I both, that I would be a stay-at-home mom. And I think we also reached this point where we're like, well, shouldn't we do for our foster kids exactly what we would do for our biological kids? Because we had in every other sense of things. But I really felt like God was like, I'm asking you to leave your job behind and do this, like, because this child is so valuable. This life is so valuable. Your time with him is so valuable because you never know how long you're going to have them for. Like, you really never know. And so it felt like this like leap of faith to quit my job, because I was like, but if he, reunifies in a month, like, and then I'm left empty-handed. I don't have this child that I've raised. I don't have this job to keep me busy. Like, and it just felt like God was like, quit your job and leave the rest to me. So I left 2 months ago, and my coworkers were so supportive. They're like the best people in the world. They were like, yep, you should totally do this. And it's been amazing. It's been so nice.
I was going to say, how has the transition been? Because I have a lot of friends who like go on maternity leave and then they're like, they decide to stay home. And like, there's kind of almost this like identity of like, what do I do? Do you feel like your transition was easy? Or do you feel like there's still part of you of like, I don't know.
No, it's like the day-to-day is easier. It's like we're going to story time at the library, and we're going to the park, and we're having play dates, and like take him to Disneyland. Like, there's all these sweet, fun things that just make the day-to-day so fun and just so much easier than managing a workload and a child. But there was a huge identity piece in it for me where I was like, are people gonna like look down on me because I'm not even like, I do this all the time, like I'm not even a real mom. Like I'm like a foster mom. Some people online say like, you're just a caregiver, like a glorified nanny, so you're just like, who am I? And then are people going to be like, you just left your job to do this? Like, this isn't your child, And so I went through all these things in my head of like,
you're like such crazy lies.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, because I feel like honestly, the biggest disservice that those comments do is to the child, because you can have more than one parent figure in your life. In fact, it's awesome too. Like, if you have the luxury of having a bio mom and like a mom figure and an aunt, like that just adds to your life, so that's what I'm always telling people. And I don't want these children to ever grow up and look back on their experience and be like, oh, I was just referred to as the foster child, or that parent didn't let me call them mom or dad, like, because I was like othered. Like, I'm like, if you're in my care, like, you're my baby as much as my biological child is my baby. But like, I always also want to respect the bio parents because that's their kid. So it's an interesting balance for sure. But anyway, for me, like, identity wise, I was like, are people going to think I'm crazy? I just left my job to stay home with a foster baby. I don't know how long I'm going to have them. But it kind of all came back to like that initial dream of mine and being like, oh, this is what God has called me to. God has called me to be a mom to kids who need a mom. And so for me, that means right now, like, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to devote everything to this child in my care. And if he reunifies, I'm going to do it again for another kid, and like, this is what I'm supposed to do. So
dude, so powerful.
Oh, thanks, Jamie.
It's so beautiful. Like, seriously, like, I see from the outside, but to hear it from your mouth and like your heart and everything, it is so, so beautiful.
Oh, thanks. You're so sweet.
No, truly. It's so amazing to watch, but also to hear kind of more in depth, and even just like with my questions of figuring out, well, what does it look like? What do, all these things.
Yeah.
And you just answering it so well and with such a beautiful perspective is really encouraging.
Thank you.
No, it is, because I think a lot of people don't understand the system, or they don't understand what it's like, or even understand the emotional roller coaster of what things look like and the capacity that it takes. And you do it with just so much joy, which I said at the beginning is like, you're just a woman of joy.
That's so kind.
If you can leave us with a little sweet treat, like something to kind of end everything off with, what would you say has been either a moment or like a marking on your heart that is like been the most beautiful gift of fostering?
I really do think the moment for me was like when my first foster son, my now godson, went home and just realizing like his home is not with me. Like it actually is with his bio parents, and like that's okay. That's like a beautiful thing. And family can look so different from how, you know, I guess like modern TV and media like portrays things. Like sometimes it looks different and that's okay. It's beautiful. I think that like changed my whole mindset about fostering. I think I had gone in like, you know, I want to save kids' lives and I want to do all these things. And then that changed it for me. I'm like, no, I want to see families restored when possible. For me, this whole journey has been so refining. I have struggled a lot with anxiety in my life. I'm definitely like an anxious person. And so deciding to do something like foster is kind of crazy for someone of my personality because you cannot control or predict a single thing. You have absolutely zero control over anything. And honestly, like at any moment I could get a phone call that changes my life, you know, for better or for worse. And so I think the beautiful thing has been that despite my anxiety, God called me into a very unstable, chaotic kind of like life path. And he has been so faithful in it. Every moment that I'm like, I can't do this. My heart is breaking. Like, I'm so scared I'm going to lose this baby. I'm going to miss them for the rest of my life. Like, whatever it may be, God is always so faithful to come in those moments and be like, I've got you and this is where you're supposed to be. And so I feel like I carry that with me, like this faith of, I feel that I have been called into a hard life path. Like this is challenging, but I also feel like it's such a privilege to get to experience the things I'm experiencing and to get to do things I never thought I would have the courage to be able to do. You know, the appointments, the court dates, all these things would have terrified me in the past and still do kind of, but it's God's like, no, you've got this and I'm going to make you like a braver, bolder, more refined person through doing these things. And I'm so grateful that he just has been faithful in that.
You're such a gift. Like it is.
I love you. You're like the best person to talk to. You're so encouraging.
I'm like looking at Maddie and I'm like, holy, yeah.
Oh, you guys. You guys are angels.
Well, would love to hear if people listening to this, if they either want to foster or know someone who is a foster parent, what would you say is the biggest need? If they can go and support a foster family, a foster parent, a foster child, is there any one little thing of being like, yeah, we're always looking for more of this? Or if you could think about this, like, and you have access, you know, send this to them, what would you say that would be?
I would say like you can help in any capacity that you have available. So even if you're like, I can't be a foster parent, there's ways to get involved. There's like kids camps that I think it's called Royal Family Kids Camp that basically is like a week every year for like older foster kids to come do this like amazing camp with all like supervised people who've been approved, and they get gifts and they get to just like be carefree for maybe the first, maybe the only time in their life. So like you can volunteer at something like that. You can become a respite care provider and do weekends or date nights. Obviously you can become a foster parent, but I would say like find the people in your community who are fostering, or if you know people who, you know, maybe you know people whose kids are in foster care, whose bio kids are in foster care, and they need support, they need a friend, you know, they're just like you would for any friend or community member. Like you can do all those same things for foster care, if that makes sense.
Amazing. If people want to follow you, I know you do a really great job on honoring their identity, so you don't show your foster kids' identity online, but you do share a lot about your life. She's really cute. She's like such a fun person to follow.
Oh my gosh, you're setting me up right now. Wow.
Will you plug your socials?
Yes. Yeah. So on TikTok, I'm Jilly, JILLYDLM. My last name is Delamotte. And then on Instagram, I'm Jilly Delamotte. So,
perfect. Yeah. We'll put it in all the descriptions. But thank you so much for sharing your story and being so vulnerable. I cannot wait to see what you guys say. If you guys in the comments and even in all the description stuff, if there's something that really resonated with you guys in Jill's story, we would love to hear. She'd love to hear the feedback.
Yes, come out. Like any questions anyone has, DM me. I always want to talk about foster care. So.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you. Well, thanks guys for listening and love you. See you next episode.